Why do you assume only other races like fried chicken? I love fried chicken. It should be a white person stereotype because of me.
Clearly you don't understand stereotypes, and in particular this stereotype. The stereotype is not that only non-white people like fried chicken. It's that fried chicken is liked particularly by a specific group, in this instance, those we would typically refer to as black, people who are black. This is because fried chicken does tend to be popular amongst those who are black. That's where it comes from. It's fairly simple and fairly easy to understand. Now, there are an awful lot of fried chicken places near where I live, and the vast majority of those who are in them do tend to be black. Now, does that mean that anyone who isn't black never goes there? No. I go to these places all the time. I love fried chicken, and I'm white. And does this mean that black people inherently like fried chicken, or like it more than white people, or like it more than Asian people? No, it doesn't. It just means that some people have recognized that an awful lot of black people like to eat fried chicken. It's just a general observation that a lot of members of a particular demographic happen to do a particular thing, in this instance, eat fried chicken. There's nothing wrong with that. I have no idea how you have an issue with this, but I do have an issue with the very concept of the thing you're doing. 33 questions that white people have for white people. You're asking white people, yourself included, why you do things you do, and then claiming that you don't do those things. The doublethink is real.
Why do we make it so we only have pumpkin in the fall? I want pumpkin all the time.
What do you mean we? As if there's some global conspiracy of white people ensuring that you can only have pumpkin during the autumn period. No, oddly enough, you can in fact actually have pumpkin all year round. Some people even do. It's just that it becomes significantly more popular in the autumn because that's when Halloween happens. Yeah? People like pumpkins at Halloween because they like to make jack-o'-lanterns and shit. That's why people get them at Halloween. That's why it's more popular during that time. You can in fact get pumpkins all year round. You can even grow them yourself, oddly enough. There's no cabal of white people trying to prevent people from being able to have pumpkins all year round. You can go and get pumpkins, that's fine. No one's stopping you, you utter moron.
Why can't most white people dance?
Everyone can dance. The assumption in this instance that white people can't dance is actually that white people can't dance well. Everyone can dance. And this comes from another stereotype, which is that black people have natural rhythm and are automatically better at dancing than other people. Your racism against white people actually stems from racism against black people, oddly enough. But ultimately, anyone can dance. Anyone can dance. I can dance. I can't dance well. I can't dance in any way that other people would generally consider to be, I don't know, attractive or entertaining. Not my thing, don't really care about it. But anyone can dance. If you go around saying that all white people, or in fact most white people, can't dance, you either don't understand dance or you don't understand white people. Either way, you're a moron.
Seriously, like, is it genetic or something? Do we have, like, stiff hips or, like, 2 left feet?
No, it's just a stereotype that you're perpetuating now. By being racist against your own race. Clever.
I can dance.
Wonderful. No one cares. Go fuck yourself, you special snowflake. Fuck you. No one gives a shit.
Why do you get so annoyed when other people don't speak English?
Well, I don't know that this necessarily applies to all white people, but I get annoyed when people can't speak English because I live in an English-speaking nation. And if you don't speak English here, then what you do is limit your ability to communicate significantly to a very minor part of the population, typically simply those just around you. Cutting off communication with almost all of the nation is generally considered a bad thing, because it's ridiculous and stupid and selfish. If I want to be able to communicate with someone, I'd like to, be able to communicate with them. English seems the best idea for that, seeing as how this is an English-speaking nation. Also, seeing as how English is the most popular language in the world, spoken by pretty much every country ever, and also is the language of science and pretty much everything else. that almost all nations in the world teach English as a second language, and most of their citizens speak English fairly fluently. Particularly in places like, let's say, Japan or whatever, where nations, for example, like Britain or the United States, very powerful nations that have shaped the world more than pretty much anyone else, English is quite an important language. To not speak it is moronic.
English is hard. We have silent Ks.
Yes, and every language is difficult for some people. Some people don't find that an issue. I couldn't care less about silent Ks. I don't have an issue with them at all. Then there are some people who do. Some of those people are white. Some of those people aren't white. Some of the people who can do it and don't care about them aren't white. This has nothing to do with race. This is about language. And if there were a language that everyone could just learn really easily, then we'd use that one. As it happens, English is the one people typically go for, because it's the best for this sort of thing. We tried it with Esperanto, tried to make a universal language. Doesn't work. People don't want to do it. The best we've got is English, because it works the best. So that's what we do. So what if you find it difficult? How is this in any way something relative to white people, or something you need to ask yourself and others? You idiot.
Why do we get so excited to brag on Instagram that we went to this really cool, authentic cultural festival, even though we went with all of our white friends?
Speak for yourself. I don't care about Instagram. I have it, but I never actually post anything because it doesn't matter to me. I don't get excited about saying, OMG, I went to a fucking cultural festival and it was so unique and it was so wonderful, because I don't care. I'm not that vain. Says the man who has a YouTube channel which is just him talking all the time. But I literally don't care. It doesn't matter to me. And if I were to go to some sort of cultural festival, chances are it would be predominantly with white people, because I hang around with predominantly white people. I tend not to hang around with anyone really, but the majority of them are white, and this is not because I'm racist or anything, it's just because the people I know happen to be white. Why, and I'm asking this quite seriously, why would going to some sort of cultural festival, because presumably you're assuming that cultural negates all white people and white people don't have a culture at all, why would going to that with white people be a bad thing? Are you saying that not only do white people not have a culture, but if they go to a cultural event, they are in somehow invading that culture? Is this more of that colonialism I keep being told is happening all the time by white people? You fucking moron.
Why do white people spray tan until they turn orange?
Because they want to, presumably. I don't really care about spray tan or being tanned at all. I usually think it looks stupid. I just like being the colour I am. But, I mean, some people want to, and they choose to. It's just a personal choice. I have literally no idea what you're objecting to here.
Can't you just be comfortable in your own body?
Yeah, some people can, some people can't. Most people can, and most people are. Most people don't use spray-on tan. What's your point?
I'm just saying, it's not tan, it's orange.
Except when it looks like tan, which is a lot of the time. Your issue here, presumably, is that white people like to look like they're tanned and try to look like they're tanned without tanning, and in some way it doesn't look right to you, so that's bad. It's a good argument. I can see why, in a limited amount of time, you've decided to add this very impressive, very important question to your list of things to ask white people. From all the things you could have asked us, why you choose to wear spray tan sometimes was obviously one of the important ones. Yeah.
Why do you think that since you've seen 5 seasons of The Wire, you're a cultural expert?
I still haven't got round to watching The Wire, actually, but even if I had, watching 5 series of it wouldn't make me think of myself as a cultural expert. What cultures does it even display? Who the fuck thinks, having watched a TV show, that they're an expert in a particular culture? Unless, of course, that TV show is like a documentary series about a particular culture and gives a lot of important information. Pretty sure The Wire isn't one of those. I don't know who this question is even directed at. Oh no, sorry, it's directed at all white people, isn't it? Including you. Why the fuck do you think that, you stupid dick?
Why do you believe everything you see on TV when it comes to other races?
I don't. Why do you?
Why do we get upset when a TV show becomes diverse, even though diverse usually just means 2 to 3 people of color?
Because they take an established show that already has the characters it needs and they randomly insert people of specific demographics into it that don't really work, that don't make sense for the plot, that didn't get there based on merit or because they're supposed to, that don't work. It reduces the quality of the writing and the production value, it reduces everything about it. It makes the show worse. Diversity for the sake of diversity is not good. That's just pointless. If all you're going to do is randomly insert people, oh, we need a gay, and we need a Jew, and we need a fucking transgender lesbian from Ireland in a wheelchair who's also trans black and has 13 fucking headmates. Sure, you've made it more diverse, well done. Now the show makes no fucking sense. That's why specific people, not all white people, get annoyed. Because diversifying things for the sake of diversity is fucking retarded. You stupid cunt.
Why do you assume movies with white stars are automatically more relatable than movies with people of color?
I don't, and yet it is assumed by the pro-diversifying crowd that having films with, say, black stars in them will make them more identifiable for black people, and therefore it's a good thing, we need more of them. Do you not understand? I am not racist, and I don't think, oh, a white person, that's like me. Now I have to identify with that person, and that will make it much easier for me to understand. I just see a character. It's you people who are racist. I'm the one treating everyone equally. Do you not understand?
People of color have had to relate to white characters for all of cinematic history.
No, they haven't. Even if you're going to say, well, yeah, but the vast majority of people who were acting in things were white and they were playing white characters and all the rest of it. Then, okay, yes. In a majority white nation, in a field that is majority white, featuring people who are majority white for people who are majority white, you'll find that the vast majority of them are white. Well done. What's the problem with this? It's meritocratic. If black people want to be in it, they have to go into it. Unless, of course, you're referring to the art, and specifically the characters don't exist who are black, in which case I'm going to say, okay, fair enough, it's the art. That's down to the artist to decide whether or not the characters are going to be black. Do you have a problem with that? Are you going to enforce people having their art modified specifically to contain the things you like? Are you going to literally force people to propagandize for you? I know this is your intention, I'd just like you to admit it.
Why is Viola Davis the first black woman to win an Emmy for Best Actress?
How the fuck should I know that? Why would I don't even know who that is, or why I should care. I don't care about the fucking Emmys. What do they don't matter at all to me. And neither does whether or not someone is black or female when it comes to whether or not they won an award. Unless, of course, you're going to say that the award was specifically only for black females, in which case I'm going to say, why are you being sexist and racist and discriminating based on sex and race? Ta-da!
Why aren't we complaining that the Oscars and other award shows are like all white?
Because there's nothing wrong with white people winning awards. There's not even anything wrong with the majority of people winning awards being white, or the majority of people who are white winning awards. What matters is whether or not they deserve the awards. If you're suggesting that people should be picked based on the colour of their skin instead of whether or not they deserve the award, then you're being racist. I happen to think that people should get the award provided they deserve the award, and that it shouldn't matter what colour their skin is. Because as it happens, I'm the one that's not a racist.
It's just like white people congratulating other white people on being white.
No, it isn't. It would be if the award was the Being White Award, but let's take the Oscars, for example, the thing you used as an example. Is there an Oscar for being white? No. There are Oscars for things like being the best sound technician, and best actor, and best director, best film, best fucking audio editing, fucking best costumes. None of the Oscars are for being white. The fact that the majority of the people who win them happen to be white doesn't mean that the awards are for being white. You may have misunderstood how awards work.
Everybody should be represented.
You mean a member of every demographic should win an award? So, like, they should say, oh, okay, so who's going to get which award this year? Well, let's see, okay, we need to ensure that at least 30 of the Oscars go to black people, and we need 11 for Hispanic people, and we need 9 for Asian people, and we need, 148 for white people, so that way it covers all the demographics in terms of how long they are, and then we'll just, like, dole them out, so, okay, black people should get Best Picture, and they should get Best Actress in a Leading Role, and they should get Best Sound Design. No. That's not how that should work. That's retarded. The people who deserve to get the awards should get the awards by being the person who deserves to get the award. You shouldn't base it on what colour they are. Have you figured out yet how to not be racist? What you do, I know it can be difficult to understand, is you don't be racist. It's a fairly simple concept. I'm not certain how you haven't got this through your head yet. If you don't be racist, you'll find that you stop being racist. That makes sense to you at all?
Why don't we know the difference between appropriation and appreciation?
I do. I'm assuming you're actually talking about cultural appropriation, in which case I'm going to say, you can't really appropriate a culture. Because appropriation is taking something from someone else. In the same way that it's sort of like theft. If you appropriate someone else's belongings, you have removed those belongings from their care and you now have it in your possession. You have deprived them of it. You cannot deprive someone else of their culture by saying, this is my culture now and you can't have it anymore. Because that's not physically possible. What you're actually talking about is people copying other people. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Try to understand this.
Why can't we figure out how to make our own pop culture, our own slang, our own cool clothes, instead of stealing other people's cool clothes and then saying that they are our cool clothes?
You're saying white people don't have pop culture or t-shirt designs. Okay, clothes. Clothes are something everybody wears. The majority of the people in, say, the US or England or whatever, in the white nations, okay, wear clothes designed by white people, okay? Not black people, not Asian people, not Hispanic people. They wear clothes primarily designed by white people, okay? Popular culture. Considering that culture in the West, white nations, primarily consists of white people, means that our popular culture is white culture. Now, you may have difficulty understanding this, but popular culture is what's popular among the people in a given place. The people in a given place are majority white. What is popular among the majority white population is therefore what the white people broadly consider to be popular. Fucking Star Wars, okay? Star Wars is popular culture. Are you trying to tell me that Star Wars is black? Star Wars is for everyone. And Star Wars is a bit black and mostly white. Does it really matter? Who even fucking cares? But you cannot possibly say that white people do not have culture, do not have popular culture, and that we nicked it all from other people. That is not to understand how culture works. You can't steal culture from someone else. You can't. Even if you claim that your culture is actually someone else's culture, as you have just done with white people by saying, well, white people don't really have a culture, it's actually other people's culture. You've literally tried to do that now. It doesn't work. It's still everyone's culture. It just happens to be the culture of the people who happen to be here, and the people who happen to be here happen to mostly be white. Our skin color is irrelevant. Why are you trying to bring it up?
Why are white people obsessed with Wes Anderson?
I must say I'm not obsessed with Wes Anderson. Grand Budapest Hotel was okay. But, I mean, Fantastic Mr. Fox was terrible. I haven't seen his other films yet. I've downloaded them from my girlfriend, but as far as I can tell, white people in general aren't obsessed with Wes Anderson. He's a mediocre director. Is that it? Is that all you had? Great, okay, moving on.
Why would you ever say thug life?
For the purposes of comedy, my good man. For example, the photograph I used to use that said, "I didn't choose the thug life," that had a picture of me sitting in my room drinking a cup of tea. The whole point was it was meant to be humorous. Okay? It's a joke!
It's a bad life.
Only if you care about morality. If you're a completely amoral person, you can have an awful lot of fun with it. Make an awful lot of money. I wouldn't enjoy the thug life. But that's because I'm a moral person.
What do you have against seasoning and spiciness?
I don't have anything against them. I like my food to have a bit of a kick. Things that are bland and tasteless are not, in my mind, positive things. I particularly like lemongrass. I find it works very well with pork. Not fair.
Didn't Christopher Columbus discover America looking for spices?
Allegedly. I don't see why that's important, though.
Their casseroles are thick.
I've listened to that clip several times, and I think what he's saying is, why are casseroles our thing? Because people in Western white nations have made casseroles, and they're nice, and we like to make them. I particularly like sausage casseroles. I don't make them very often, but they're nice. I don't have a problem with us liking casseroles or making casseroles. What's wrong with it?
Why do you try to avoid confrontation at all costs?
Why the fuck do Americans say confrontation instead of confrontations? More than one confrontation is confrontations, okay? It's plural, there's an S at the end. Say the S. Avoiding confrontations is a reasonable thing to do, provided you are attempting to keep yourself safe. As it happens, I'm quite a confrontational person. I enjoy a good confrontation. A physical altercation is usually quite fun and does end up resulting in some sort of result, usually a positive one. For example, when I was a child, and I was bullied at school for various reasons, physically fighting back resulted in an end to the bullying. People stop bullying you when you hit people with chairs, because people think, oh shit, I better not bully that kid anymore, because he's going to hit me with a fucking chair. It's quite easy to understand, really.
Why is it crazy that I'm white and I have a big butt?
It's not. Who the fuck thinks it is?
Why do you make such a big deal when somebody doesn't want to hike?
What the fuck? Who was that aimed at? I never go hiking. Hiking sucks. I know very few white people who go... In fact, I don't think I know a single white person who goes hiking. And even if I did know white people who went hiking, and they asked people who weren't white to go hiking, and people who weren't white didn't want to go hiking and said, no thank you, I'd not like to go hiking, I wouldn't have thought that universally those people who did want to go hiking would say, oh my god, what the fuck, man, why didn't you fucking want to go fucking... and like flipping out and killing everyone. That's not quite the way I imagine most people would react in that scenario. I have no idea who the fuck your question was aimed at.
Why do you keep talking about reverse racism? That is not a thing.
I talk about it because people like you bring it up. However, I never call it reverse racism, because I recognize that it's just racism. You see? You see the way it works? I don't talk about reverse racism, because you're right, reverse racism isn't a thing. It's all just racism. I'm guessing you'd have an issue with that, but I think that's just because you're racist.
We are the people in power.
Racism is about oppression. Sorry, white people have not been oppressed.
No, racism isn't about oppression, it's about racism. Also, white people haven't been oppressed. Yeah, okay. The majority of people throughout human history have been oppressed. Almost all of them throughout all of history have. More recently, very, very recently, specific nations have become more free, have become less oppressive, and have allowed people to have more individuality and more individual rights, and we have become more free as a result. These nations are typically white Western nations, and it's been because of things like white people saying, you know what, fuck this shit, we're not going to be oppressed anymore, and rising up and not being oppressed. You can't possibly say white people have never been oppressed. We all have. Now, if you're going to say white people are not currently oppressed, then I'll say yes, we're not. But black people aren't either. And if you're going to say that because some black people in the past were oppressed, they deserve better status now to make up for this, then I'm going to say, well, guess what? White people too were oppressed. Do we also deserve that? And you'll say no. And I'll say, guess what? You're a fucking racist.
Why are you too afraid to speak up when someone says something racist?
I'm not. That's what I'm doing now, you fucking racist.
Why do we think that having one friend of color means that nothing we say or do could possibly ever be racist?
We don't. This is the popular trope of, well, I have a black friend, I can't possibly be racist. The idea being that I treat this person like I treat any other, therefore I'm not a racist, which is fairly reasonable. If you treat people who are of a different race to you the same way you would treat people who are the same race to you, then you're not a racist by definition. So, yeah, well done. The issue comes then with if someone has a black friend and then they say something against black people that's racist, then it doesn't work anymore because, of course, you're being racist. But to assume that this is something that all white people do or all white people think or all white people believe is massively racist and hugely egregious.
Why does being half white automatically make my commentary on white culture only half true? I am just as much white as I am Mexican.
Why are you judging the validity of someone's claims on the colour of their skin? I wouldn't do that. That would be racist. That's the entire basis for this whole thing, isn't it? This whole thing is you judging an entire race of people based on their skin and asking at the same time why they're doing that to you, ignoring the fact that for the most part they're not. I don't think I'll ever understand this level of cognitive dissonance. It's just mind-boggling. Then, of course, it has to be by its very nature, doesn't it?
Why do you believe that Black Lives Matter means that your life doesn't matter?
Well, I would base that on the members of the organisation, the Black Lives Matter movement, stating that white lives do not matter, and that when someone says Black Lives Matter, White Lives Matter, everyone's lives matter, they get booed, they get shouted at, they get you can't say that, white lives don't matter, And the fact that a large portion of the Black Lives Matter movement are racist against white people would lead me to believe that they don't care about white people. Does that make any sense to you? All lives matter is fine, because guess what? It refers to all lives. It's not racist. Black Lives Matter isn't necessarily racist, not by definition. Just saying Black Lives Matter is not wrong. But it is implied that Black Lives Matter and other people's don't. If you want to say Black Lives Matter also implies and everyone else's do as well, then why not just have said all lives matter? And why complain when someone says all lives matter instead? Why is that somehow bad? These are questions you have to ask yourself if you want to continue with your current train of thought. And you won't, or if you do, you'll just ignore them. Because you're a moron.
Every life matters, it's just that one has a harder time living.
Not according to the most recent equality study done in the UK. It found that actually if you're white and male and poor, you had a much worse off time than people who were not white, male and poor. So there's that. But if you're going to talk about, for example, police brutality or overrepresentation of criminality, then I would say yes, black people do tend to get arrested more by the police. They do also tend to commit more crimes. That may be a factor. Now, you're claiming automatically that it's entirely due to racism. I don't think it is. It could be. There's a possibility that it could be due to racism, but I've seen no evidence of this. And you're assuming that it's all white cops shooting black kids that are unarmed and didn't do nothing. And yet, whenever one of these examples comes up of, this young black upstanding citizen was murdered brutally by a cop, it's always actually the guy was 25 and committing violent crimes and had a gun and pulled it on the cop, and the cop acted in self-defense. And people get, oh no, you can't say that, it was just a white person murdering a black person. And then you get all the people ignoring the fact that white cops and black cops also murder white people and who are unarmed and didn't do anything, literally. And that this doesn't appear in the news and people don't care about it and there isn't an uproar and people don't riot over it and say, white lives matter. And all of this is important and relevant, and if you bring it up, people like you will say, and that's wrong, you can't talk about that, and it's racist, it's black lives are important, no one else's. And do you see what the issue is here? It's not that other people are being racist, it's that you're being racist.
Why do you get offended when you see a table full of black people, but not when you see a lunchroom full of white people?
Well, I don't get offended ever, but even if I did, I wouldn't get offended by seeing a table full of black people. I don't know a single person who would, white or otherwise. And even if that were the case, why then would a cafeteria full of white people offend me? I see no reason as to why it would if that were the case, and if that weren't the case, I still see no reason as to why that would offend me, or why it should offend me. Clearly you think it should, but I don't know why. Are white people inherently offensive? You probably think they are, actually. Yeah, okay, you probably actually believe that.
Why do you always ask to have a white people club?
Because other people insist on having black people clubs. If black people clubs weren't there, we wouldn't insist on white people clubs. You will notice this. Nowhere will someone say, I want a white person's club, where there does not already exist a black person's club, a Hispanic person's club, an Asian person's club, so on and so forth. No white person ever stands up first and says, I want a club specifically for my race. They only demand equality after other people have specifically been racist and segregated and discriminated against them. They only ever demand equality. They never demand racism or segregation. That is only coming from people who are racist, who are not white, as it happens, because of people like you.
You already do. It's the student union.
Our student union isn't white. The past 2 years in a row, the head of the student union has been an Indian bloke. I was nominated to run for the student union this year, and I chose not to. The vast majority of people, I believe, who were running weren't white. The people who got in were mostly white, I think, but that's just because they were the people who people voted for. I don't understand what your aim is here. Are you saying that because some people who were fairly elected democratically happen to be white, when there are societies specifically for certain races, there shouldn't be one for a race that is represented in some way freely in a student union, provided of course that that race happens to be the white race? That's a very strange thing to say. I don't see how you've come to that conclusion. Unless, of course, I'm just spitballing here. You might just be racist against white people.
It's primarily white. They have a black student union because you don't represent them well.
That makes no sense whatsoever. Okay, you have a student union. The student union can be made up of literally anyone. Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, whatever the fuck. Doesn't matter. The people who get in, who are elected fairly and openly, democratically, by everyone equally, on an equal footing, happen to mostly be white. And so you say, well, I mean, clearly they have to be racist and they won't properly represent the students. So obviously what we need to do is disband democracy, just totally remove it entirely, and instead automatically put people who are a certain skin colour into a position of power equal to that democratically elected part of the university or whatever, because that will fix the problem. Just ignore people's personal preferences and what they've actually chosen and who they've actually freely elected in an open, free democracy. Instead, we should just put in whoever I want based solely on their skin colour. If you're going to deliberately represent one group and you're going to enforce representation of that group, you must also do it for the others, or you are not being equal. In this instance, you are doing it based on race. So, if you are not being equal based on race, then what you are doing is being racist. It's very simple.
Why do you see the success of people of color as a threat to you?
I don't.
You know that a 2-minute video about whiteness isn't reverse racism, right?
No, that would just be racism. Not reverse racism, that's not a thing. It would just be racism. Just specifically racism against white people, which presumably you think doesn't exist.
2 minutes about whiteness, hundreds of years of systemic oppression. Yeah, I think we can deal with this.
Okay. First of all, it's not about what we can deal with. We can deal with anything. We're awesome. Second of all, hundreds of years of systemic oppression. Quite likely to prove that if at all possible. No person has been alive for hundreds of years, so it kind of affected everyone all the time. Second of all, are they currently being oppressed, or have they been in recent years? I'm guessing no. If they have, in what way, how, prove it, citation needed, so on and so forth. Even then, what we're talking about is not whether or not we can handle it. Everyone can handle words. Words are fine. Words don't do anything. What we're talking about is whether or not you're being racist, and you are.
Why are we upset about immigrants when we were the first immigrants?
Well, a lot of people are upset about immigrants because they don't want people ruining their nation. For example, there's a lot of fear concerning Muslim immigrants, because a lot of people believe that the views of Islam and Muslims in general are counter to views of Western civilizations. This is not necessarily true. There are an awful lot of Muslims who hold views very similar to those typically espoused in Western nations. But Islam itself does typically run counter to the views of Western nations. For example, it's against freedom of speech and democracy and equality and that sort of thing. So people don't want people moving to their nation and destroying what they hold dear, which is their nation. It's fairly reasonable. And of course, if you're going to say, well, I mean, we were the first ones. Okay, so yeah, we turned up in various locations. Specifically, I want to go for the British here. The British turned up in various locations, and what we did was build hospitals and roads and education. We gave people everything, modern medicine. We basically improved the world vastly by turning up and saying, this is ours now. Was it right for us to just turn up and say, this is ours now? Not necessarily, no. Did it have a massive positive benefit? Yes. Will Muslims turning up in Britain who can't speak English and who are opposed to our ideals and want actively to murder us being here be a positive thing? No, it won't. There is a massive difference between what you're talking about.
And we were white people running away from other white people. That kind of shows you how bad white people can be.
Wait, white people running away from other white people? What are you talking about? I'm literally not certain what your issue is. I don't know what you're talking about here. Okay, well, whatever. There you go, that was that. Another pointless racist piece of shit from fucking BuzzFeed. Anyway, fuck off, ladies and or gentlemen. Black men, white, Hispanic, Asian, whatever the fuck you happen to be. I honestly don't care. Fuck off. And of course, good luck.